and welcome back to On the Grid Podcast, Series 3, Episode 30. How are we already at the 30 mark? I'm your host, Ethan Evans, joined as ever by Adrian Keita. How are you today?
I'm very good. Just before I think we start this episode off, I'd like to thank everyone, especially Max Verstappen fans, on the last YouTube video that we did. It's doing very, very well. And obviously we got a bit of unnecessary criticism because of the Insta reel that we posted. But it looks like the tide has turned, and it looks like we've got the Max Verstappen fans on our side once again. So thank you very much in the meantime. And ahead of this episode, yeah, I can't wait. We've had a bit of a week off, and I can't wait for racing to be back underway once again.
That's right. We've caused quite a stir, but it seems that as ever, F1 fans are very fickle and can be easily turned again. So yeah, we got them back on side. So we do not hate Max Verstappen. We just think he is too good currently. Anyway, getting on to our predictions for said race in Monza. So let's start off with our star predictions. Now, the first one, I got a mixed bag here. I had Lawson to beat Tsunoda, which, just by starting the race, he beat Tsunoda. So, well, he even still, I think Lawson would have been in with a chance of beating Tsunoda, who started alongside him on the grid. There's a potential there, but we would never know. And then I had Albon to finish sixth or higher. And I'm glad this didn't come through because Albon finished seventh because Hamilton overtook him. So I'm not too upset with that one. How about yours? How did you get on?
I'm glad both of mine kind of didn't come to fruition. I had a Ferrari disaster at DNF, and I'm glad it didn't happen because we had a fantastic weekend in Monza. And I had Norris on the podium, which I mean it didn't happen. But I think it's kind of good that Norris didn't get the podium in two senses, because one, he's stayed grounded and he's not getting too ahead of himself in the championship battle further ahead. And two, it's showing that realistically, when it comes to straight line speed, for example, McLaren aren't as good as Williams. So it's kept him grounded, and it'll allow him to have a look at more upgrades to potentially close that gap to Williams in straight line speed terms. So I'm happy that both of them didn't come to fruition for once. I'm not upset at all that I've fumbled both my star predictions, but even though I got 0 out of 2, I'm quite happy that both of them did come to fruition.
And moving on to our top five for qualifying. Now I got a whopping 0 out of 5 for this. So I had Verstappen on pole, Perez second, Alonso third, Hamilton fourth, and Sainz fifth. Now I got, I wasn't too far off on a number of them, but obviously the top five was Sainz, Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell, and Perez. So not a million miles off, but yeah, not to be for me.
No, it's a similar story for me. I got the 0 out of 5. I put Verstappen on pole, with Perez in second, Norris in third, Leclerc and Sainz fourth and fifth. So I wasn't too far off with Leclerc. Sainz I put a bit lower than he should have been, and Verstappen was what a place off as well. So I'm not too upset about it once again. But yeah, these predictions have been woeful for us guys once again.
And on to the race. Now, this was slightly better for me. So I had a Red Bull 1-2 correctly predicted with Verstappen winning. So Perez second. I said Hamilton would get a podium, and then Alonso and Norris wrapping up the top five. So better for me, but I got my bog standard 2 out of 10, which is usually only for Verstappen pole and win, but not this time.
Well, I got the 1 out of 10. I predicted Verstappen to correctly get the win. I predicted Norris to get P2, and he was nowhere to be seen. Leclerc to get third, which could have happened if things got a little bit more tasty in between the two Ferraris, but luckily Sainz held on. I predicted Perez for fourth and Hamilton for fifth. So, I mean, potato, tomato. It is what it is.
So not the best weekend for us. Looking ahead to this weekend, obviously we got the Singapore Grand Prix. Now there's a couple of the changes to the track layout for this season. Obviously, instead of that clunky sort of 90-degree corner section, which is very slow in sector 3, they've got rid of that, putting the straight there. So maybe there'll be some more overtaking opportunities. McLaren have announced a new livery. Now, I'm not sure if you've had a had a chance to have a look at it. I'm a bit underwhelmed. It just looks very, very similar to what they had before. They're calling it a stealth livery for Singapore and Japan. It essentially looks the exact same. At least last year they done it a little bit different. They put some sort of neon pink in there, I think it was. But yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it's showing me the article. Yeah, it looks exactly the same. It's just a bit more black on it and a little bit less orange. I don't know if you can really call it a special livery because it looks exactly the same.
Yeah, I've just whilst you were talking about it, I've had a quick sneak peek. The article says McLaren will use a new livery design at the upcoming back-to-back Grand Prix weekends in Singapore and Japan as the team continue to celebrate their 60th birthday year on and off the track. Okay, but why more black and less papaya? Maybe going back to the chrome would have been a bit nicer, maybe. Or maybe even sticking with the chrome for the full season. I don't know. Probably the chrome. If you're thinking McLaren, you're thinking about chrome livery. That it straight away click. You're thinking about chrome livery, from back in the day. You're not thinking of papaya. You're not thinking of black, really, are you? You're thinking of chrome. Um, and yeah, like you said, I'm a little bit underwhelmed by it. Um, yeah, I've got nothing much to say really. It's just a livery that's a bit underwhelming. Probably average 5 out of 10 livery for me. Nothing special, nothing spectacular. But I mean, I'm not opposed to it. But yeah, it's just a bog standard car livery, isn't it? It's nothing special. I would have been happy if they went back to the chrome once again, or even rocked it for the full season. That would have been my honest view on what McLaren should have done. But whole chrome livery for the full season, 60th year anniversary would have been perfect. Would have been a chef's kiss.
Yeah, I get they want to celebrate their 60th year. The only thing I can think of is that they ran the chrome livery, well, a semi-chrome livery at Silverstone. Um, but the thing is, the two liveries that stand out, if you think of McLaren, you think of that chrome, but you also think of the red and the white back in the 90s when you had Senna and Prost. Can you incorporate that somehow? Maybe have white and orange so you're not taken away from the new identity they're trying to build with that papaya, as Zach Brown said when they kept a whole lot of papaya in that Silverstone livery. But yeah, it's a little bit underwhelming. I actually had to compare the side by sides to actually see the difference. But yeah, it's a slightly less papaya, a bit more black, which seemingly every car is running this year, with majority of the car being black. Some not so good. Well, depending on how you look at it, depending who you're a fan of. Maybe some good news for some fans, some bad news for other fans is that it looks like Liam Lawson is set to continue for these two races, this back-to-back weekend, in place of Daniel Ricciardo. And it's going to be it's quite ironic that, Ricciardo's replaced Nick De Vries, yet here we are coming into this weekend when Lawson, by the end of the Japanese Grand Prix, would have raced in double the amount of races that Daniel Ricciardo's had since returning to F1. So we still wish him all the best, and hopefully it won't be too long before we see Danny Rick back in the sport. Moving on then to our Singapore Grand Prix predictions. Why don't you kick things off and give me your 2-star predictions?
2-star predictions you can receive. But I mean, unless I was a genie and you could have got 3 wishes, but you only get 2. I've gone with, obviously we were talking about the McLaren stealth mode livery. And I've gone with Norris and Piastri, both in the top 10. I think that they'll be showing some signs of promise. I could have gone top 5 even, but I've gone top 10 just to be safe, because I think that they may show signs of weakness in qualifying. And this incorporates the next choice, which is Alex Albon in Q3. I think once again he's going to perform to a fantastic standard. He'll get his car in the top. He'll get his car in the top 3, maybe in Q1 and maybe in Q2, but I don't think he'll have a pace in Q3. And I think he will qualify. He will get himself into the Q3 top 10 shootout and potentially even get a top 5 place. Might be a bold statement, but I've settled with Albon in Q3 and Norris and Piastri to finish in the top 10 in the race, just to be safe with the 2 McLaren guys. I think that 60th anniversary in that. We'll give them a bit of credit, shall we?
I do have a little bit of a bone to pick. I understand they have on Q3. This you wouldn't have thought this is a track which suits that Williams, but is saying both McLarens in the top 10 not the same thing as saying Verstappen to win? Is it not? Is it not the
No,
same thing where
no,
it's
no, no, no,
basically
no.
a given at this point?
Right, hear me out. I don't think it's given in Singapore. I really don't think it will be given for McLaren to be in the top 10 in Singapore. I think I might be being really, really picky, but I think that McLaren are going to be weaker around Singapore than other cars. I don't know why. I've just got this wicked sense that tells me that potentially Oscar Piastri will be knocked out in Q1. I don't know why. I've just got a sixth sense that this might happen. Then again, they could probably prove me wrong, and both of them are on the podium, for example, and then I get my pants pulled down. But then again, I get the prediction for both of them to be in the top 10. So it's a win-win for me. But I do generally think that McLaren will be weaker around this track than they have been around any other track in the last couple of rounds of this season. And I think that it could be a bit of struggle time for McLaren. That's why I've gone with a safe option of both McLarens in the top 10, instead of specifying a top seven, a top six, or a top seven finish. I'd rather get my points on the board than not getting any points at all. So call me a scam artist all you want, but I need points and predictions, and especially my 2-star predictions.
Okay. I hear your point. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. I've gone a little bit bolder. I've gone for Logan Sargent to flop. Now, I'm not sure what that looks like. Maybe it looks like a crash. Maybe it looks like he finishes last. Or maybe it means he gets lapped 5 times. Who knows? But I think he will flop this weekend because there's increasing pressure on him to perform to keep that Williams seat. And I think he's going to crumble slightly. This isn't a track you would have thought would be that the Williams would thrive at. So I think that's taken into account as well. My other star predictions, should I say? I think you're gonna like this one. Red Bull do not win. I don't think Red Bull win this weekend. They've come out and said that if there is one of the races between now and the end of the season that they are a little bit fearful that they might not win, it's this one. And I think that could be playing into them a little bit. As we get towards the end of the season and this 100% winning record sticks and, Verstappen's breaking every record, there starts to be a little bit more pressure on them to keep this going, to become the only team to win every single race. And I think that they won't win this race. Maybe I'm just buying into a little bit of the hype that Red Bull may be a bit fearful, and this is exactly what they want, and they're going to come out and win, have a 1-2 a minute ahead of third place. But I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic for this one. Moving on to qualifying predictions. Now this feeds in slightly. So I've gone for 5th. I've gone for Lando Norris. I think that McLaren is going to be good actually here. The opposite of you. 4th, I've gone for Carlos Sainz. He's qualified very well the whole season, to be fair, which has gone quite under the radar. And I think he'll continue his good form. Lewis Hamilton in 3rd. This is a track he likes. We've seen some unbelievable qualifying sessions from Hamilton here. 2nd, I've gone Max Verstappen. I don't think he'll be on pole, because I think on pole will be Charles Leclerc. I'm sure you'll love it, but I think he could be on pole. I think given his qualifying, specialty, I think he could do it. I think he could get on pole. We've seen that the Red Bull is not unbeatable in qualifying. There's been sort of 4 or 5 occasions where other teams have got onto pole, haven't gone on to win, but I think Red Bull won't be on pole, or Verstappen won't be on pole, should I say?
I really hate you because this doesn't buy into my pessimistic view on Ferrari. It really doesn't. But if we're going from reverse order, I'll do the same. So in 5th, I've gone with Fernando Alonso. I think his expertise of the track and his general know-how of Singapore, the amount of times he's raced there, I think he will be able to put his Aston Martin into 5th. In 4th, I've gone with Sergio Perez. It's still an improvement from his last couple of qualifying sessions. Obviously, Perez won the race last year, So I think he's down for a better qualifying session than he has done in the last couple of races. In third, I've gone with Charles Leclerc. I do think Leclerc is good at qualifying, but I don't think he's as good as Carlos Sainz, who I've placed in second. And I've gone with the inevitable Max Verstappen pole position. I just don't see Max Verstappen being beaten in qualifying. And obviously, I think the top three will be split by bare margins. I think seeing less than a tenth of a margin here once again, like we did in Monza. A funny stat is three qualifying in the last 12 months have been separated by, I believe, less than a tenth. And I think this one will be another one where we see a very, very close qualifying session. So just to cap off, Verstappen first, Sainz second, Leclerc third, Perez fourth, and Alonso fifth in qualifying for me.
You say you're being a bit more pessimistic with Ferraris. So instead of pole and third, you've gone for second and third.
No, I wouldn't say I'm being pessimistic. I think we've seen what Ferrari is capable of in Monza, but I think they had a very, very much straight line speed orientated package there. And in Singapore, they very much need more downforce with the amount of corners. And I mean, you've got a couple of straights, but do they sacrifice the straight line? Do they sacrifice the downforce needed for some of these low speed corners for just one or two straights in Singapore? I don't think they'll do that. But I do see a good qualifying for Ferrari. I don't see them getting pole, but I do see them qualifying very well in Singapore.
Interesting. Do you want to give me your top five for the race at the same time?
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, I think I'll speak for everyone. I think Max Verstappen will win the race. And I've kept myself optimistic for Ferrari. You've kind of bigged me up a little bit, and I think Ferrari do deserve a little bit of recognition. I see Charles Leclerc finishing second. Perez will finish third. I think he'll overtake Carlos Sainz. And I think Sainz will have a little bit of trouble on one of the stints, and he'll fade down to finish fourth. And I see Lewis Hamilton finishing fifth. I think I wouldn't say a Singapore specialist because you could say that for every single track, but I see the Mercedes doing better than they have in the previous races, and I see him claiming a top five place. So yeah, for me, Hamilton in fifth, Sainz in fourth, Perez in third, Charles Leclerc in second, and Max Verstappen winning the race inevitably.
You're going to love my predictions. So in fifth, I'll do it in reverse order. I've gone for Perez. I don't think he'll have the best qualifying, but I do think he'll recover somewhat in the race. Maybe looking at it, he should probably be on the podium, which he usually is. Fourth, I've gone for Charles Leclerc. I think he's going to have a little issue in the race, whether that's with a pit stop or with the engine or something like that, which is going to drop down the order slightly. I've gone for Hamilton to get back on the podium. I think he's put in some good performances recently, but it's not quite come off for him as of yet. He hasn't had a podium in a few races now, so I think he'll end that slight run of bad form. As I said, I've gone for Verstappen second. I don't think they'll win. I've gone for Carlos Sainz to win. He's in fantastic form at the minute. Even looking at Zandvoort, then Monza, he's done really well this season. And I think on current form, if anybody is going to beat the Red Bulls, he is the most likely to. Maybe off the back of that first podium, but yeah.
Just a question before you end that off. Obviously, Monza, we saw how easy it is to overtake in Monza, especially down that start-finish straight. Do you think that in Singapore, Carlos Sainz has got a better chance of doing an even more stout defense, especially with the limited straights? I think that's the key question to have. If you're putting for Sainz on to win, do you think that strategy could play into hand and Red Bull could potentially snap a win due to strategy, for example?
Well, I think Ferrari are going to do what they should have done in Monza and split the strategies of their cars. Where the front three were leading and they were pulling away, and yet Ferrari waited for Red Bull to make the first move with the pit stop. They should have split the strategy, maybe pit Leclerc early and go for a two-stopper so he can really be aggressive on the tyres, and then allow Sainz to defend that lead as much as he could. So either way, you're going to get one car which is in a better position to battle. Whether that is Leclerc or Sainz, it doesn't really matter. For Ferrari, the most important thing would be to win. And I think they're maybe going to learn from that. Maybe Sainz is in a better position. And I think we saw how well Sainz defended at Monza. He was fantastic for the first 20 odd laps until he made a small mistake, which cost him, got slightly out of line going into turn 1, and that affected him all the way down to turn 4, where Verstappen was able to make that move stick and get past and never look back. I think at a track where it's harder to overtake, he maybe gets a little bit more reckless and a little bit more, he has a bit more trouble with it and maybe makes a mistake. But I don't think it is going to be as easy if he is not in the lead at the end of lap 1. Personally, I think it's going to be a lot trickier, and he could come into a couple more issues in that regard. But that is all for today. We have gone through our predictions, reviewed Monza's, and gave in Singapore. We will be back next week, next Thursday, where we will be reviewing the Singapore Grand Prix. Until then, thank you all for listening. Check out all of our social media and all the reels we put up of these podcasts, and engage. And we will see you in the next podcast. Goodbye.